Welcome to the Secret Art of Business. And Brandi Lutz is my guest today. And Brandi, you are just going to work some magic for the listeners today. I already know this already because I really wanted you to have you on here to kind of talk about what you do and show them how they can too. And essentially, you are a consultant and you are a keynote speaker, but the reason you're here today is because you are the executive director and host of Creative Mornings. So if you could, well, first, welcome to the podcast. And second,
Thank you.
I always get so excited to just get right into it. And let's talk about Creative Mornings.
Yeah, so we are part of a global organization. It's the largest face-to-face networking community for creatives in the world. And so I am responsible for hosting and leading our local chapter here in Columbus, Ohio. And every month we have an event where we feature a local creative, give them the stage for 15 to 20 minutes to give a TEDx style talk, and we provide free breakfast, a free program to anyone who wants to attend. So what we say at Creative Mornings is everyone is creative and everyone is welcome. And so we have, in our particular community, are really fortunate to not just have a thriving creative community, but have a very diverse group of folks to attend our events. We say from 17 into their 70s. We have people who come every month, and we get to curate these really engaging and interactive experiences for these folks to not just get to know our speaker, but also get to know one another and themselves a little bit better.
All right, I'm going to underline one of the things that you said, or a few of the things that you said, and that is, one, it is free. Two, it's a free breakfast, and everybody's creative and everybody is welcome. And I don't know what could be more inviting than all of that, because you have to have breakfast for one. And who knows what your creative thing is? Because I think immediately people think about creativity as like, well, I'm not an artist. I can't draw. I'm not creative. And that's not true, because we each have two halves of our head in our brain, our brains in our head. And one side is very logical and the other side is very creative, but we tend to neglect the one side or forget about it because people think it's not important. But what people will discover in Creative Mornings is that it is not just drawing. So if you could just kind of talk about what somebody might expect if they just happen to walk in, grab a muffin and some coffee and sat down, what might they see?
Sure. So we have featured speakers that are everything from fitness professionals to founders of organizations, muralists, musical performers. This upcoming month, we are featuring Anissa Love, who is a local drag performer, but has a very vast and incredible experience as a vocalist. And so we really are drawing from a variety of different backgrounds, and all of those folks have something to say about creativity. And defining creativity more broadly, and this is why we say that everyone is creative. Being a human is a creative process.
Exactly.
We're making decisions every day that are determining our future state, and that is creating. And so we really want to embrace that in the local chapter of Creative Mornings. In addition to our speakers, we have a lot of opportunities for folks to interact with one another rather than having a traditional Q&A where the focus continues to be on the speaker. We have small group discussions that lead to like a more open and engaged process where folks are not just taking what they've heard and diving more deeply into what the speaker thinks about that topic, but diving more deeply into what they themselves are integrating from what that speaker has said, and how that's going to transform them. And then hearing from other people that might spark interest around sort of what they might do differently in the world, having left that session. So that's a really unique and important part of our specific experience and how we've interpreted the Creative Mornings mission.
Yeah, and I'm going to just offer some commentary on that because, like, first thing in the morning, I'm still halfway through a cup of coffee, and you're asking me to talk to strangers. It's not as bad as you think. At first, I was like, ugh. But the questions are so fascinating, and I loved that it was questions that you may not face it in a regular day. We get very
Yeah.
routine driven. It's like, what are we going to have for breakfast? Who am I going to call? Who am I going to get back to? Here's my to-do list. But these questions kind of come out of left field. And just the exercise of going through that is in itself very creative and
Yeah.
and problem solving and all those sort of things. And I welcomed it after a minute of wanting to talk to
Yes.
everybody. Just throw information at me. That's what I'm so used
Yeah.
to. But then to be engaged is something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say that something about our events is that there is an investment that our attendees are making. It's an investment in getting to know themselves better, getting to know their community better. And so it's not so much a sit and get. It really is an experience that folks are invited into having. We have certainly, you might have noticed at our last events, we're always thinking about inclusivity and how we can create spaces that are more and more comfortable. We have a team member who's more introverted, and they had suggested a new implementation for those introverted folks who aren't necessarily ready to talk to a stranger first thing in the morning. And so we tried that at our last event, wherein folks who weren't necessarily interested in the discussion, but wanted to reflect, we gave them a note card and a pen so that they could write down some of their thoughts. And that was the key to the folks around them, that they weren't quite ready to have that engagement first thing in the morning. And so that's something that we're always working toward, is how can we create more belonging? How can we create more accessibility? How can we create more space for intersectionality, where every single person who walks in the room feels like they can have a sense of belonging in that space? And that's tricky, right? Everybody has their own needs.
And just to recap so far, free breakfast, free event.
Yes, free breakfast, free event.
You don't have to engage with someone if you don't want to.
That's right. And incredible speakers. I mean, we have
They
had.
They are.
So we've had Hanif Abdurraqib, we've had Maggie Smith, we've had Andy J. Pizza. These are folks who have an international reputation as being all-stars in their fields.
Yes.
And so we're so lucky that these incredible creatives agree to come in and provide their expertise and their insight and their creative output to our community. We're so lucky. We're to the point now where our reputation precedes us. And when I ask someone if they'd like to take our stage, very infrequently do they say no anymore. And I think that speaks to the quality of content that we're able to provide and the ways that we engage not just our audience, but also our speakers. It's an authentic expression of who they are, and they know that. And so we're just really lucky.
I don't know if you or I could endorse this anymore. So I'm going to move on to the next question, which people don't think about that much, is what did you do as a kid that was fun and creative and innovative? What was the one thing that you were just so joyful when you did it?
So I was definitely a creative kid, and what I really loved was a problem that I could solve. This isn't going to sound like traditional fun to a lot of people, but the moments that come to mind for me are, I had a teacher in 5th grade who did these incredible things. Like, he transformed our entire classroom into a grocery store so that he could help to teach us like math and, like getting our grocery list together and writing down all of those numbers. We would have all day reading days. And I remember he assigned us a project where we could creatively kind of interpret the content from a book. And the book that I read was Bridge to Terabithia. And I remember creating a scrapbook as if I were the main character for Bridge to Terabithia, and, designing the photographs and, pasting those in and writing the commentary. And then when I was in 6th grade, that same teacher facilitated something called Odyssey of the Mind. And it was, again, this idea that the problem that we were solving was assigned to us, but we got to work collaboratively with one another to do things like design a skit where we also had to put like a lot of weight on a balsa wood structure. And we got both scores for the skit that we did, and then also for the structural integrity of what we created and how much weight it could hold. And those types of things are really fun to me. I love when I get to creatively look at something in a new way and interpret it and go through that process of designing.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And I've seen that your path does always contain some sort of art thing. And because
Yes.
I'm seeing writing consultant, you're licensed and or certified in that. And then teaching, which was kind of interesting, only because I think it's an amazing profession. And to be able to share your information with young minds is pretty awesome too. So, what did you really like about that part of your life?
Hmm. Well, I would start by saying that if there's a role that I most identify with in life, it is to be a teacher. And for me, even something like creative mornings, speaking and facilitating in my professional roles for my like inner drive. The reason that I do those things is because it's really important to me when I gain new information to share that in a way that's meaningful, that can spark something within another person. And what
Hmm.
I most value in regards to sparking something in another person is that self-reflection, that self-transformation, that new understanding of like who we are. And so in as a high school teacher and every step that I've taken along the way since then, that's a really strong drive for me. And in some ways we can put that like a generic term on it, like personal development, I think is one
Right.
term that might be used. But that's just always been something that's really meaningful. I'm super engaged with that for myself and my own journey. I've done a lot of personal development, but then I really love to get out there and help other people to be able to integrate insights about themselves and transform and change.
Well, it feels like a lot like everything that you have done with the coaching and the teaching has led you to where you are right now with Creative Mornings, because I'm sure, and I do this too, is like I will meet someone and I'm like, oh, everybody's got to know about you.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of what you were kind of describing there. It's like you get some information and you just want to be able to share that, teach that to everyone, and you are able to have um, the opportunity to essentially mold that person into a speaker, and then they can share that knowledge, and you just get to kind of sit back and watch everybody's face light up as they gain all this information.
Yeah. I mean, we had talked a little bit about this before, Catherine, as you were preparing for the interview. And one of the key roles that I play on the team is I'm the primary support person and the primary relationship for all of our speakers. And we really go on a journey together where it begins with just a lot of careful listening and asking a lot of questions and documenting everything that I'm hearing. And then I look for those threads and I look for those themes and I help them to put some structure around their ideas. And sometimes these folks are coming to us and they have massive amounts of experience presenting and sharing. But what is their specific story for this moment in this theme with our audience? And
Hmm.
we get to some really deep and profound places in that process of just listening and being present with them. And I think that shared vulnerability that we have with one another is first to the stage, and then that becomes the safe place where everyone gets to hear that what sparks them and what makes them feel alive and what their deepest struggles are, and the ways that they're not just an artist professionally or a leader professionally, but what is their personal journey, and what can we all take from that? I think that's just such an incredible part of the process for me.
I love that, and one of my favorite things about speakers are when they can really tap into something like that. The ones that are the most memorable are the ones that can kind of find that one common thing with everybody, or the one thing that kind of makes them gasp or whatever, makes them super relatable. And I think sometimes when people speak, they think, all right, this is what they want to hear. And it's
Yeah.
just very top layer stuff. But then when you get down a few layers, that's where people start getting more memorable and people relate and say, oh my God, I can do that too. Or I totally see you differently, or things like that. And that's where the magic happens. And I think
Yeah.
that that has been captured every time with Creative Mornings,
Mm.
because everybody has been vulnerable when they've come up. And I've talked to some of the speakers later, and I'm like, that was great. And it is a great way to start the morning. And the one thing I want to mention before I forget, because I do have another question for you, is the information for Creative Mornings will be in the notes for this podcast. So I want people to definitely check that out because it is a global organization and people can probably find a Creative Mornings near them. So we're talking
Absolutely.
about this location, but there are many. So definitely dig into that, and you can just wake up and start your day with a smile and a cup of coffee. Okay, so my last question for you is, while you're changing the world and changing lives, what do you do when you need to unplug? What is there something that you do that is just kind of gets you in your zone of genius, gets you relaxed, that just really kind of helps you unwind?
I mean, I have a lot of what I hear in what you're asking is sort of more the self-care and what is it that I
A little
do
bit.
to keep myself
Yep.
energized and
Hmm.
available for the work that I do. On the most, I guess, obvious level, I am a napper.
I love
Which some people, I hate to tell people that, especially in my professional work. I work a lot with educators, and that is totally inaccessible and such a place of
Oh,
privilege to be able
true.
to take a nap. But that is something that I do. I do, it's called a yoga nidra, which is essentially like a relaxation meditation, and that often leads me to sleep. I do a lot of journaling. I write a lot and reflect a lot on my own process. And then I have my own kind of, I guess, creative endeavors and playful endeavors that I engage with. I do a lot of, well, I do some collage. A recent hobby that I've picked up is pickleball. I have never in my life done any kind of athletic activity. And a year ago, I picked up a paddle with my family, and we're out there a couple of times a week,
Oh
just
my goodness.
playing around. And so it's been, and that is such a fun community, free spirited thing to do that I never thought I would find myself engaging with. But it's been a lot of fun.
And nothing will get your mind off work quicker than when a ball is coming at you.
That's right. Really being in the moment, I think that's what that's taught me. And a lot of patience with myself. I have two children who are 14 and 24, and the amount of grief I get from them, the amount of smack talk that I'm constantly receiving for if that I to play better or whatever. And it's been really just a way to have a lot of patience and recognize that for me this is my growth edge, and it feels exciting and interesting to be engaging with something like that at this stage of my life for the first time.
I love it. I love it. You're not the first person to mention pickleball, but you are the first person to mention napping. So I would applaud you for that for a couple of reasons. One, for admitting it, and two, for doing it, because I have seen a couple of things recently where people were talking about how that is just seen as such a negative. It's like,
Mm,
how take a nap? I mean, you're
mm.
wasting time, you're lazy, all those buzzwords. But it's like, but why is it? If that
Yeah,
is what makes you happy, but B, if your body really needs that, why not listen to that? I think we got to
yeah.
take the stigma off of that a little bit too.
Well, I first of all want to say that I just listened to an interview with Abby Wambach on We Can Do Hard Things, and she naps from 3 to 5 p.m. every day. And she is an
That's a
all-star
big nap.
performing athlete, and the output that both her and Glenna Doyle put out into the world is incredible. So I just want to have, for those who are interested in this, there are other models out there of people who are doing this type of thing. And the other thing that I would say is I have ADHD and I'm a highly sensitive person. And
Hmm.
part of what I've had to navigate in my life is that my need for rest is very different than other folks' need for rest. And so that experience of overwhelm and needing to navigate through that on a daily basis, that's part of what I need to do my work in the world. And so for other folks who find themselves overwhelmed and especially tired and are also navigating, neurodivergence and all of those things, we need more rest than other people. Catherine, I'll say that's a lot of creatives. A lot of the speakers that I work with are neurodivergent, and their daily process looks different. I think it's important to acknowledge that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think if Glennon Doyle kind of honestly endorses this because her main thing is that we should all be a goddamn cheetah. Cheetah's got a nap.
Cheetah's got a nap. You know what? If there's a hashtag on this conversation, I think it's going to have to be
Cheetah's got a nap. I might have to include that in here.
that. Yes.
Well, Brandi, this has been so delightful. I've loved getting to know you a little bit better. We've talked a little bit at Creative Mornings, but this is absolutely lovely. I did not know you had a child that was that old, and you look fantastic for having a
Thank you.
24-year-old. So thank you so much for doing this, and I really hope people follow your message, everything that you said, between the napping and the creativity and all of that, and really, really take that in because it's all super important. And I hope to see you at a Creative Mornings really soon. I really do enjoy them, and I watch to see who's coming. But honestly, I think I might just have to make the effort and just go to any of them because I always feel so good after. I really, really do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the feedback that we get pretty consistently is that for folks to attend regularly, it is that point of rejuvenation that they need in their lives. I think it provides that sense of community, that sense of inspiration, the support of knowing that we're not alone and just getting ourselves out of our boxes and
Yeah.
into a new environment. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And if you have the time and the speaker has the time, take a minute to talk to them after. There's been a number of them that I've spoken with, and they're like my best friends now. So
Yeah, incredible people.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you again. I'll have all the information in the notes so they can reach you, but I appreciate everything that you're doing.
Thank you, Catherine. It's been a wonderful conversation.